Greetings and welcome back to the Casual Wargamer. Today, taking a look at the Adeptus Custodes and their codex. Where do we start? Well, the Custodes do appear in Rogue Trader. There is a very tiny entry for them, talking about them as the bodyguards of the Emperor. And there is one piece of artwork for them, which is slightly strange. Compared to what we see of them now, it's basically a bare-chested man with his six-pack wearing what looks like stretchy lycra trousers, a cloak over his shoulders, and a strange gold, well, I say gold, it's a black and white picture, but this strange, almost Eldari-looking mask on his head, standing there with a spear off to one side. It's far removed from what we see now. And there is really nothing about them in Rogue Trader outside of that. And I think there was nothing really about them for most of the lifespan of 40k. It was only really in late 4th edition when the Horus Heresy side of the hobby took off that you got Custodes as an army there. And over time that was slowly ported into 40k. Until now, I can't remember whether the actual first Custodes Codex came out 8th edition or end of 7th. I can't remember. But now they're a fully fledged army in the 41st or 42nd millennium. And they're they're an interesting army. I'm not going to touch on the female custodians. I did that in a video a few months back. You can check that out in the playlist. There are two things that I will say with Custodes. Prior to the 10th edition codex, Custodes were an absolute nightmare as far as I'm concerned. They really were the epitome of an elite army, one that doesn't have a lot of models on the field, which is kind of great in a way if you want to get into the hobby cheaply. You haven't got to fork out quite so much. But an elite army has small models. They are tough to deal with and they hit like a brick. And those last 2 points, I really feel that the last couple of editions, that was taken too far. I really felt, especially under 9th, I got to say, that I struggled when dealing with Custodes opponents, apologies, because I just couldn't bring them down. That invulnerable save and everything else, and just the amount of damage and how hard hitting they were in melee just basically wumped through anything that I could bring to the table. And a lot of the time, actually, probably where I'm thinking of knights, the amount of times I would see someone bring a Custodes list supported by like Armigers or Helverins or what have you, for that extra bit of firepower, but just couldn't deal with them. Come 10th edition, we have a new codex, and they are now a much more enjoyable army to play against. Like with Dark Angels, where players with that particular army went, "We've been nerfed." No, you haven't. You have been rebalanced to fit in with everybody else in the game. There is a certain level that they're obviously trying to get to, and you were brought back into the fold, as it were. So actually, the Custodes are now a much more, I'm going to say, balanced army than they were before. And that can only be good. Keeps people happy playing against them and so forth. The other thing that I want to touch on, and I will probably mention this again at some point, if you look at the units in the codex, there aren't a lot of them. You're pretty much characters and a few other bits. But in the Horus Heresy side of it, in the legends, there's this huge list of stuff. And quite frankly, Games Workshop, you're naughty, because this stuff should all be plastic kits and in the codex. there's nothing there. It would give them flyers. You've got the Ares gunship. I'm just looking at my list here. Orion dropship. You'd have the Telemon heavy dreadnought, the Venatari, the Contemptor variants, and the other Custodes and so forth. The Caladius grav tank and so forth. This is all stuff that should have been in that codex for 10th edition. No excuses. And it's very disappointing that Games Workshop didn't do that. Hopefully they will do, but we shall see. Going on to the army itself, army rules is Marshal Qatar. This is an army that is based on its melee, and your army rule here is you choose one of two stances. I hope I'm not butchering these. Dakatari, which gives your melee weapons sustained hits, and the Rendax, which gives your melee weapons lethal hits. So if you need to go through a horde, or you need to start picking on a monster or even a vehicle, this gives you the ability to do it. Detachments. Now I'm kind of iffy on the detachments. Your first one up is Talons of the Emperor. This is a combined Custodes and Sister of Silence detachment. The problem is that nobody really plays Sisters of Silence. Nobody really wants to. They're not quite good enough. When I play against Custodes, if someone brings the Anathema Psychana, it's 2 units maybe. They're just not worried about. I've never faced the Talons of the Emperor, I think basically because the detachment rule, which is Revered Companions, requires you to be fielding both of them, and I think in sufficient number that you can benefit from its ability. The Psychana basically give Custodes units a 5-up field opening against psychic attacks and mortal wounds, and then other Custodes units gain within 6 inches of Anathema Psychana, they get +1 to the hit roll. It's the weird thing is the enhancements and the stratagems for Talons of the Emperor are quite nice. The problem is you're never going to want to take this for them and not take the Sisters of Silence, which basically means you're probably never going to field this detachment. It would be nice to face this one, see what a combined force can do. And it's on my list to try and play against. But I've never seen anyone take this. I'm not even sure I've seen a battle report online where anyone's taken this. Enhancement-wise, they aren't bad. I think they're a little overcosted. You have things like the Aegis Projector. So the first time you fail a saving throw each turn, the damage is reduced to 0. It's 20 points. Okay, fair enough. But Champion of the Imperium, the Null Aegis or Deadly Utility ability, which is the 2 abilities for the detachment, are increased to a 9-inch range rather than 6. That's 25 points. That seems really excessive. Gift of Terran Artifice, I should say, 15 points. It's the only one that I think is particularly reasonable. The bearer gets to add 1 to the wound roll in melee attacks. And Radiant Mantle, 30 points for this. Each time an attack targets the bearer's unit, if that model is within 12, they get -1 to hit. Why is that 30 points? Just seems really overcosted. Your stratagems, however, are quite nice. They are fairly generic, but to the point where you would want to play them. Whereas a lot of detachments I find in 10th edition, you tend to pick 1 or 2 that you're going to use, and the rest of them, if the opportunity comes up, you're not going to focus on it. This has got your fairly generic list. You're going to probably try and use any of these. So you've got you can shoot and charge when you fall back. You've got you can make a 6-inch move when an enemy unit moves within 9 of you. and so forth. It's all fairly. There's nothing too specific. It's all something that's going to happen in the game and you could benefit from it. You're just not going to see people building such a specifically combined list. Shield Host is your second one, and this is the one that I find people play all the time. Your detachment is Martial Mastery, so at the start of the battle round, you select one of the following until the start of your next battle round. These effects apply. If you're in Martial Qatar, you get critical hits on a successful hit of 5+, or the armor penetration of melee weapons equipped by Custodes units in the Martial Qatar is increased by 1. This is a detachment that's all built around just Custodes. And I think that's why people play it. People play Custodes to play Custodes, not play Sisters of Silence. In this one, you've got some good enhancements, and they quite reasonably costed. You've got Auric Mantle, adds 2 to the bearer's wound characteristics. The Castellan's Mark, which lets you redeploy. Things like that. Reasonably pointed, quite handy, nothing too strong. As for your stratagems, again, they are ones that for a Custodes army, you will probably end up using more often than not. Feel no pain against mortal wounds. You get bonus attacks against units that are below half strength. Pardon me. Lethal or sustained hits, things like that. There's a reason I see this as the dominant detachment and the one that everybody plays. Next up is the Null Maiden Vigil. This is the one that nobody uses. This is your purely Sisters of Silence detachment. And what can I say? Literally nobody uses this. So the detachment ability, Creeping Dread, which is an aura effect that in the battle shock step of your opponent's command phase, if an enemy unit that is either a Psyker or below starting strength is within 12 inches of one of your Anathema Psychana models, you can have them make a battle shock test. If they're below half strength, they get -1 to it. Okay, yeah, fine. It's not great, but it fits. It's thematic. The other thing you have with this is that if you have this detachment, your prosecutor units become battle line. Enhancements. Okay. Enhanced Void Sheen Cloak. So basically, you subtract 1 from the damage of attacks made against them. If the attack was made by a Psyker or Battle Shock, you can just change the damage to 1. Nice. Huntress's Eye. This is an odd one. In your command phase, you can pick one enemy within 12 and basically go, make a battle shock test. Okay. Fine. You have the Raptor Blade. So extra attack, strength, and damage to the bearer's melee weapons. And while they're engaged in range with an enemy Psyker, they get +2 instead. Okay. It's all very anti-Psyker, which is what you'd expect. Then there's a really odd one. You have Oblivion Knight, 25 points. While this bearer is leading a unit, each time they make an attack, add 1 to the hit roll. If they target an enemy Psyker unit, add 1 to the wound roll. Why is that 25 points? Seems exceedingly excessive. Stratagems. Okay, so these are all dealing with Psykers. I really don't know what to say about it. I'm not even going to go through these. Okay, everything is to do with Psykers. Getting extra attack. Well, I said I wasn't going to go through. Getting extra attacks against Psykers. You can gain stealth against Psykers, sustained hits, things. Okay. Once again, nobody is going to play this because it's too specific. even if it wasn't just Sisters of Silence. It's too specific. Now, if you had those models and you were playing a Crusade game and you knew you were going up against, say, Thousand Suns, Grey Knights, or maybe even a Psycho Heavy Tyrannid list, this might be worth taking for the thematic value and the fact that you've got things that work for it. But you're never going to roll up to a pickup game with this detachment. It's pointless. I get why it's there. The Sisters of Silence do operate on their own. They are part of that army. Fine. But as a detachment, it's naff. It really is naff. Now, lastly, we have Auric Champions, which is your detachment built entirely around your characters. And bear in mind that Custodes have a lot of characters. I think hot chocolate time. Assemblage of Might is your detachment rule for this. So at the start of your command phase, select one enemy unit until the start of your next command phase. Each time a Custodes character from your army targets that unit, they get +1 to the wound roll. Yeah, that's fine. Your enhancements. You can cause mortal wounds. Engagement range 25 points, not too bad. I think it's after they charge yet. There's another one that gives you a leadership of 5+, and you can basically go, that is battle shock unit is no longer battle shocks. You've got the Veiled Blade, which gives you 2 extra attacks, and once per game can triple the objective control of the bearer's OC. And then you've got Martial Philosopher. So I'm going to read this one. So for this particular character, the bearer's unit is eligible to shoot and declare a charge on the turn in which they fell back. Once per battle, when an enemy unit enters a normal, advance, or fall back within 9 inches, if you're not within engagement range of one or more enemy units, then this character's unit can then make a normal move up to 6 inches. This is 30 points. It seems quite odd to me that they seem to be giving you some nice enhancements, but then making some of them crazy costed for no real reason. Stratagems are all built around characters. Again, it's very specific, but it does kind of work. So these get re-rolls. You can have a fight on death for certain models in your units and feel no pains for character. I have played against this one. Where are we? The Auric Champions, and I beat it. 2,500 point game using the Anvil Siege Force, which everyone says is terrible. And I absolutely stomped them with this detachment, which I find very odd, and that can't just be me. It's thematic. You have a lot of characters, but piling everything onto the characters means the rest of the army doesn't get anything other than its basic Catars. It's okay. It's fun to play. It's fun to field everybody and just throw them forwards. But I don't think it's particularly... I don't think it's strong enough. Realistically, the Shield Host is going to be your detachment for Custodes. Repeating myself, nobody wants to play Sisters of Silence. It's all Custodes. That's where the coolness lies. That's going to be your detachment that you face every time. Okay, so I'm going to end a little bit about detachments by saying this. I think these are slightly too specific. As I said, yes to the Null Maiden one, it needs to be in there. Shield Host is Custodes. Fine, the character one. I generally think what's missing, there's 2 detachments that I think are missing. I don't know what you'd call them or what you'd do with them. You want one for jet bikes. You want one that's focused on that fast moving, hitting hard Dawn Eagle style play. Now, forgive me while I get these names right, because Custodes are not my full things. Get this right. Yeah, so your Terminator equivalents, things like the Alaris Custodian and so forth, there should be a Terminator equivalent detachment. Something that lets you field a truly elite force. But they didn't do either of those. And I really thought you would see that. Pardon me. So, coupled with that and the fact that they need to start putting the legend units into the codex, there's half your codex is basically your characters as well. They need to put a few more options in the book. And hopefully, when they come to do the 11th edition codex, you'll start to get these legend units put in there. All in all, I think in general, this is a nice codex. It's been, as I say, rebalanced down so it fits everybody else. You're not going to ruffle stomp everybody like it used to do. And that can only be a good thing. So, that's my thoughts on the Custodes and its current codex. It's gone on slightly longer than I intended for this video, but there you go. I would like to know your thoughts. Agree, disagree? Let me know down below. If you do play a Sisters of Silence army, let me know how. I would be interested. And what you do to actually make that playable, because I would genuinely be interested. Do you agree, disagree with me about the detachments? Especially that Auric Champions. I'd be very interested to hear people's thoughts on that. Anyway, thanks for watching. Give me a thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button. It's over here somewhere. And I look forward to seeing your comments down below. Until next time, take care, guys. Good gaming.